Welcome, everybody, to our webinar on how to survive the holiday red zone. And, we can kind of joke about how it's so stressful for the holidays, but there's some real data that shows that it absolutely is the most stressful time of the year. So I'm glad that you're here. If you're watching this, there's something I know about you. One thing would be that you want to learn, that you're an action taker. But another thing is maybe you know that you need to learn more about managing stress for either yourself or for your loved ones, people that you know. So I want you to know that I'm part of a nationwide group of chiropractors that we promised that we would donate our time and get information out there to the public, to our communities, so that we can literally change the health of our communities by changing the paradigm, changing the model from a disease care model to a wellness care model, and to save thousands of lives in the process. So that is why we are here tonight spending this time together. And we're going to just focus right in now on this whole idea of how do we best survive this holiday stress and how bad is it? We're going to look at that. And then what do we need to do so that we can avoid what most Americans are living through, the effect of chronic stress on their lives, on their health, and on the quality of life for themselves and their families. Most people are just burdened under it. And so, what do we need to do to finish the year strong? This is the time of the year when a lot of people just give up. Oh, I'll just wait till after the holidays and try to get back on track then. But I promise you, there are better strategies. And tonight I'm going to share those with you. Whenever I talk about this topic about stress, there is this story that just comes to mind every single time. And it's something that happened a number of years ago, but it's still this time of the year, it makes me think of it, especially with everybody traveling so much this time of the year. So a number of years ago, some of my colleagues were on a flight, and it was the holiday time of the year. And while they were on this flight, there was this middle-aged guy that was a passenger traveling with his 11-year-old daughter. And in the middle of the flight, the guy has a heart attack and dies on the plane. Can you imagine being that little girl and having to get off that plane by herself? Right. And so when you think about who was this guy, like what happened? What was the story behind this? And you can only guess, but you got to imagine he was described as a middle-aged fellow who was deconditioned, is the word that they used, which basically just means he was a little bit out of shape. And he's probably thinking, yeah, I probably should get in shape. I probably should start to exercise. I probably should improve my diet. Yeah, sleep's not the best. Yeah, I get a lot of stress, but I have time. I'll get to it. And he didn't get another chance. And I can only think, oh my goodness, what if I or any of my colleagues had actually gotten to that guy sooner and created a pivot point for him in his life so that he actually could be finishing this year and every year strong instead of literally checking out during the holidays and leaving his daughter behind. So I don't want anybody I know to ever have that happen to them. But boy, what an impactful story to really drive it home. And this is not a typical, I mean, yes, we would say it doesn't happen very often, but this time of the year is the time of the year when these kinds of things seem to happen. And so that's why this is actually called the holiday red zone, because there is so stress and burnout. But remember that all year long, we have so much stress and burnout, and we max it out during the holidays. And I want to show you a graph that is pretty significant because it tells the story that I just told, except, oh, by the way, those of you that are in the practice and are on this webinar, I want you to make sure that you do send a text to our number, 802-985-9850, and type in 12 days. And that means you're going to get an extra raffle ticket because you're attending. So we appreciate that. All right, carry on. So this is the graph. Look at this graph. Now, this is looking at the daily people that are dying from cardiac deaths throughout the entire year. So you see on the left-hand side, this is July, in the middle of the summer, and then it ends again in the middle of the summer. So it's not January to December that we're looking at, it's July to June that we're looking at. And this is just tracking over many years from 1973 to 2000. That's almost 30 years of data. And they just plotted it out. And look at this inflection point that happens year after year at this time of the year. And so the holidays are truly the most stressful time of the year. There may be a lot of joy that happens this time of the year and a lot of fun and family time, but that's not necessarily unstressful for a lot of people. So we know that this is the time of the year where it maxes out. Literally, heart attack rates jump 33% in December and January. And 55% of people are stressed throughout the day all year round, but it just ramps up at this time of the year. And I have to say that another poll actually has shown that since COVID, we actually have more American adults 18 years old and over that are not just stressed, but are literally displaying symptoms of anxiety and depressive disorder. And that is ramped up a lot. It was like before 2019, it was like 6 to 8% of the population, and now it's up to 30%. So let's just unpack why this is happening. And it comes down to actually the way we're designed, our genetics. We were designed genetically to have an economy of our limited resources. We were designed to try not to expend too much energy, because if you think about it, the way we were designed back in Paleolithic times, right? That's when our genes were set. Our modern day genes right now were set 40,000 years ago. So think about what the environment was like, what our lifestyle would have been like 40,000 years ago, right? And so you would have had to expend a lot of energy just to get food. Just to get energy, you'd have to expend a lot of energy. And so it was designed that we want to be as economical as possible to not expend extra energy, because we had to make sure we reserved it for when we had to go get food. So the idea of like living your daily life in Paleolithic times, and then let's just add in an hour of running to that we don't actually even need to do. No, genetically we're designed not to do that, to avoid that. And so if you think it's hard to install exercising, it's because genetically your body actually wants to be very efficient and wants to be lazy. We are designed to be genetically lazy. But let's just face it that all of us have the same limited resources: time, energy, focus, and money. Now, there are variations on how much money different people have, and yet it doesn't mean that they're any more or less stressed. So let's just get that straight. People with lots of money have some of the highest levels of stresses. People that have very little money may have very simple, basic lifestyles, and they have little stress. So it's not about how much of it, it's actually just whether or not you're stressed by it and your perception of that stress. So we all have the same amount of time. Nobody gets more or less time. We have the same amount of time. It's what we fill our time with that will determine whether we feel like we have discretionary time. We all have varying amounts of energy, but we can have a choice there. We actually can do things that can give us more energy, and we can do things that can tank our energy. And that's what I help a lot of people with. And our focus is another thing. What are we actually paying attention to? What are we choosing to put our focus on? So all of these demands on us, they all still have to have that background rule about survival advantage. So we still need to economize on how we're expending all of these resources. And anytime that we're feeling maxed out on any of these resources, our body actually will go into survival mode. And so the holidays are demanding all four. Like these are maxed out all year long, but the holidays demand all of them. And so we have this like chronic stress, low-grade chronic social stress, but then the holidays, there are real physical consequences to it because everything gets ramped up. So it's very similar to acute stress that we're hardwired for, like a tiger chasing you. So let's look at what that looks like. A typical stress response that we were designed for, that thank goodness we have this, because if a tiger did show up, it's the best chance that it would save our lives. So what would happen if a tiger showed up? We would have ramping up the production of stress hormones. Our melatonin would downregulate. What is melatonin for? Sleep. not a good time to sleep if a tiger is chasing you. Our blood pressure is also going to spike up because we want to push that blood as fast as possible out to the muscles so we can fight or run. We're going to upregulate cholesterol as well because cholesterol is for healing wounds that we might get from a tiger. So let's have more cholesterol around in case we get a wound. But cholesterol is also used in order to make stress hormones. To make all of your hormones, cholesterol is necessary. So if we're going to have driving cholesterol levels, then we need to upregulate cholesterol in order to continue to make more. For the same reason of the anticipated possible wounds, we're going to upregulate our clotting factors. We're going to downregulate our insulin sensitivity because we actually do want to flood our blood with more sugar because that's going to carry it to the muscles where we need it to be able to fight or run. And our connective tissues actually get weakened, and they get weakened because of the high levels of cortisol. Now, some people, when they have inflammation, chronic inflammation in a joint, they will choose a healthcare model that would recommend, oh, let's give you a cortisone injection. And that may help to temporarily drive down inflammation, but it actually weakens the connective tissue. And so it is known that you do not want to have repeated cortisone injections in the same place because it's going to weaken and could degrade the very tissue that you may be trying to heal. And so we know that high cortisol levels in the body actually weakens connective tissues. And then we also know that, of course, the immune system is going to be downregulated. Why is that? Because the immune system is a very expensive system to run. And so when we're fighting a tiger, we want all resources to go to that fight or flight, survive the next minute. And so we're going to need the immune system later after the tiger goes if we've been wounded. But right now, we just need to be able to fight. So because it's such an expensive system to run, we actually will downregulate the immune system. And when all of this happens, downregulating the immune system, wait a minute, what time of the year are we in right now? Oh, it's flu season. Hang on. It's not actually flu season this time and right after the holidays, although we call it that. Those flu viruses, they're around all year round. What it is, let's call it what it is. This is actually stress and sugar season, is what it is. And so our immune system being downregulated this time of the year, it's because it's stress and flu season. So any of these symptoms that we may have, they all are the body trying to speak to us. And so this evening's presentation, this workshop is just part of a year-long program where we address a different condition each month, condition-specific solutions each month. And this is all about the holiday red zone. So it's all about managing stress. And we call this the Body Signals Program. And it's because we want people to understand that there may be specific symptoms that go with different conditions, but every symptom is your body's way of asking for help. It's your body's way of trying to get your attention to tell you, you are moving away from health right now. Please change what's happening right now. And so whether we are listening or not is the key to that. Because in our culture, let's face it, when things are going sideways, people go to that mirrored cabinet in the bathroom. What's that called? I know you guys know. Oh, it's the medicine cabinet. Yeah, it's part of our architecture, right? Yeah, that we go and we try to take something so we don't feel that symptom instead of actually honoring that our body has a message for us and uncovering what's behind it. And so the symptoms are what show up above the surface. You can see the iceberg here. The symptoms are what are showing that you're feeling, that you're noticing, that's getting your attention. But it's a sign that there may be a lot more going on below the surface. And it's that below the surface part that can really tank us and take us out. And especially if we're not listening over and over again, then we just start to lose ground. Now, what if we actually like chipped away at the top of this iceberg so it was no longer there? What would happen? That whole iceberg actually would rise up and even more of it would be showing. Because if you just try to, suppress the symptoms or make the symptoms go away, it doesn't actually solve the problem. And I know you all know that. So although our culture is kind of trained to go in that direction, yeah, we need a better way. And so there is a problem that sometimes drugs do work and it quiets the symptoms, but it's just allowing you to get sicker and sicker. So, how many would agree with you that we need a better way? And I want you to just understand this. Look at the discretion between symptoms versus the cause of the symptoms. So we need to figure out what is the cause and address that. And then if the symptoms go away, it's because we've actually gotten a resolution. And also the difference between the symptoms and the problem. And so the symptoms might be, oh, maybe feeling depressed or anxious this time of the year. Maybe it's indigestion this time of the year. Whatever those things are this time of the year, because we are talking about holiday stress, right? The symptoms start to show up. But what is the problem? We may think that the symptoms are the problem because they're getting in the way of us having the life that we want to have. But the goal, if the goal is just to make the symptom go away, we're going to be in trouble because the problem is whatever the cause of it is. And so we're going to unpack all of this tonight to understand what is the cause of this spike in deaths at this time of the year? What is the cause of us handling stress all the other times of the year, but not at this time of the year? And I would again just say we're not really handling stress all those other times of the year, right? We think we are, right? So let's look at this idea of symptoms and what is their purpose? They definitely have a purpose. We want to be paying attention to them because they're telling us in what direction we're headed. They're telling us if we're moving away from health. So you can see on the right-hand side, we have robust levels of health. On the left-hand side, we have early death. And in between, we have a range. So this is a continuum. And everybody that is listening to me right now, including me, we are all somewhere on this continuum. And so some people, they already are having symptoms. You can see where you'd land. You're over on the left and you're moving towards earlier death, lower and lower function. Other people don't have any symptoms, but all that means is you're to the right of the symptoms. That's the whole range that doesn't have symptoms, is the entire part to the right. So that neutral point, it's not necessarily sick, but it's not necessarily well. And so that's what we call the not sick zone. And you'll notice that in between the not sick zone and the symptoms is the signs. Now, signs are something that can be measured. Symptoms are something that you feel. And so you'll notice that there are signs that we're moving away from health even before the symptoms show up. So the guy on the plane, chances are if you'd done some cardiovascular workup on him, you would have seen signs that he had cardiovascular risks. I don't think his trouble with his cardiovascular system and with his heart started on the airplane. I think that was the culmination. And so we are definitely we have ways that we can measure things. We have signs of them that will tell us in what direction we're heading. And if we don't pay attention to the signs or we don't know about the signs because we're not looking for them, next thing you know is we have that gift of symptoms that is telling us we're moving the wrong direction. But what happens if we just take a drug so we don't feel that symptom? We may still have that lower function, but we now don't even feel it, which actually puts us in a place of losing more and more function without feeling it. By the time you're getting to disability, it's no longer correctable, and you're on your way towards that earlier demise. So symptoms have a very important purpose, and yet people are taught that symptoms are the best indicator of health. I feel good, so I'm okay. Yeah, if I ever get sick, I'll do something about it. Yeah. So if that's the way that people are living, really now, let's take a look at what this tells us about feeling symptoms. How does that play out? So it turns out that in your nervous system, you have one part that feels things like pain or symptoms, but you have another larger part that is running things, running the muscles and running the organs. And it turns out that less than 10% of your nerves actually sense pain. So if you're waiting for pain to tell you whether or not you have a problem, you're going to be in trouble, just like that guy on the plane. And so we need to have a better way of looking at our health and our health issues instead of just waiting for the symptoms to show up. And so let's just unpack this and set the table here of better premises that we need in order to get better outcomes. Because what you think about, how you think about things will determine how you act, and how you act will determine what your outcomes are. So let's take a step back and set the table of some better ways to get better outcomes is starting with a better premise. The first premise is that you are designed to be healthy. That healthy is a normal state because we are designed to be healthy. And conversely, if you're not expressing health, it means that something's interfering with the natural expression of health. And there are only two things that it can interfere with the natural expression of health: toxicities or deficiencies, or both. And so if you want to be healthier, we just have to reconcile any toxicities or deficiencies, and then that natural state of health, that design to be healthy, healthy is normal, will start to express itself again. The second one, you are intelligent. Your body is smart. Say yes to that. Your body is smart. And every single cell has all that intelligence within it. Each cell does. And the way that we coordinate that cell, that intelligence in every single cell, is coordinated by coursing across the nervous system. The nervous system is the master system that is controlling everything else. And it's that communication network that the body uses to have that intelligence shared throughout the entire body. So the nervous system is the master system in the body, and therefore your spine is your lifeline. And your spine is that suit of armor that is protecting your spinal cord, which is where all the messages are traveling between the brain and every tissue cell in the body, going out and back again. And so tonight we're going to teach you why that suit of armor that your spine is your lifeline, and what it has to do with mastering holiday stress. We're going to cover that. And so can we all agree that life is more stressful now than it was a few years ago? I don't know about you, but I would agree with that based on what I see in my practice and how it's affecting people's lives. So let's just take a look at how that stress is showing up. It's actually coming at us from three dimensions. We call it the three T's: thoughts, toxins, and traumas. And all three are huge the entire year, but they get exponentially at full force during the holidays. So let's just unpack this here. And I would just ask you, like, would you agree that stress can make you sick? Right? So we have exposure to these stresses, these burdens to us, and we know that it can make us sick. But if the body was designed to be healthy, like the design of how we digest food or metabolize food, or the design of how we breathe, or the design of how our blood flows through our body, or the design of how we deal with infections, or how we digest food, right? What system is in charge of digestion? Of course, it's the digestive system. What system is in charge of breathing? It's the respiratory system. What system is in charge of blood flow? It's the circulatory system. But let me ask you this: what system in your body helps you with stress? What system does that? Think about how amazing the design of your body is to heal. And we're going to answer that question in a moment, but let's think about how smart the body is in its ability to heal. The body is self-healing and self-regulating, and it does have that ability to heal itself as long as there's no interference. So if you cut your finger, what happens? It bleeds, it scabs up, and then it heals. Every time, it'll heal. And if it's not healing, maybe it's because there's a sliver stuck in there, so it's getting infected. Do we ever just leave that sliver in and then just treat it with antibiotics and keep going? Or doesn't it make sense to remove the sliver in order to let the body then heal it up? Right? So things can interfere with that ability of our body to heal itself. And so we just have to reconcile what the interferences are. So if we ask the question from an acute kind of injury like a cut finger to our health crisis that we have, like the guy on the plane, why do we have a health crisis if the body can heal itself? The body is so good at healing itself. Why do we have such a health crisis in our country? Why are so many people struggling with chronic illnesses? Why is that? I would say it's not just that we have a health crisis, it's that we have a health care crisis and a lifestyle crisis. That it's these things coupled together that are causing the outcomes that we're getting. So the lifestyle crisis is interfering with the body's ability to heal itself, leading to chronic disease. And then we're treating that chronic disease downstream instead of going back upstream and correcting the cause of the problem. It turns out that 96% of all health problems are the result of the inability to adapt to stress. And at holiday time, yeah, it maxes out. So let's just set the record straight that it's our behavior, it's our lifestyle choices that's the problem. Because this time of the year, people often say, oh, I think I'm getting sick or I got sick. But let's just set it straight. You don't get sick, you do sick. Your behaviors matter. The choices that you make matter. There are positive and negative consequences to every choice and behavior that you have. And so, if this is true about getting sick, then it must be true about getting and staying well. Disease comes from the body's inability to adapt to stress. If we're not adapting to the stress, we're going to be getting sick, meaning that we have just been doing sick because we're doing things that are not allowing us to adapt to those stresses. We're either exposing ourselves to too many stresses or we're not doing the things we need to do so we have a good ability to adapt to the stresses that we do encounter. And so that's the good news here is that you don't get healthy, you do healthy. So it's not just bad luck. It's not just bad luck or bad germs or even bad genes. If you're struggling with being healthy, it's bad behaviors, right? And so if we can change how we're behaving, if we can change what we're doing, what our choices that we're making, the body is self-healing and self-regulating as an organism, and it does have the ability to heal itself as long as there's no interference. So how do we thrive during this holiday season, the most stressful time of the year? Who wants this? That's why you're all on the call. So who is with me here? Let's unpack this. Let's look at this now. So when we talk about stress, there's two ways to approach stress. One is to reduce the stress that you're exposed to, and the other is to increase the tolerance of that stress. And the healthiest people in the world know this about health and healing, that when it comes to thriving in an unnaturally stressful modern world, we need to address both sides of this coin. So we do need to be disciplined and discerning about choices we make that may expose us to more stress. So there's still choices there of limiting the stress we're exposed to. But stress tolerance is something that does not actually get talked about that much. Most people have heard of stress reduction, and that basically just means, yeah, just don't do so much, don't strive for as much. And the problem is, oh, people just, they want too much. They want to live a bigger life, they want to do more, they want to enjoy more. And so if it's all about stress reduction, it means doing less and living less. And so it's not very inspiring to just do less as your way of dealing with stress. So, sure, there are some smart choices again to make and discipline to apply, but increased tolerance actually makes much more sense because it means you get to live your life in a bigger and bigger way. And so that's what I want to talk about here. And so if we come back to these three stresses, the theme of today is all about allostatic load. Allostatic load means the difference between what you're able to do and what you're doing and what you have to handle, right? So if you have more stress than you're able to handle, then you're going to need to try to adapt to it in some way. So for example, lifting weights. If you're struggling just to manage what you have, you can't handle anything more or help anyone else. And so if you're lifting a weight that you can just barely manage, you can't add anything else to that or you're going to be blown out. If you're handling something you can manage, yeah, you can probably manage a little bit more. And if you blow it out, you are definitely taken out of the picture and you definitely can't help or enjoy your life or help anybody else. So struggling versus being easy to manage, that's really the idea about looking at stress. If you're already maxed out, then one more little thing, it's going to mean you can't manage it anymore. They actually did a study where they measured two groups of people for 2 years. And what they noticed, there was a 500% greater increase in heart disease with folks who had high allostatic load compared to the other group. But what was interesting about this is that in these two groups, it was the perception of that allostatic load that they were actually monitoring. And when they looked at what the actual stresses were that people had, sometimes the people that didn't describe themselves as having that much stress, they actually had as much stressful factors in their life as somebody else that was perceiving that they had huge amounts of stress. So the perception of the stress actually made a difference in the outcomes of their health and their incidence of heart disease. So let's just look at this time of the year in each of these categories, right? Okay, thoughts, right? More emotional stress this time of the year. I love the holidays, I really do, but there's more financial strains about money not being able to provide. There's all the shopping to do, and now it's online late at night, right? And we should be supporting our local economies. And how do we manage our time and wanting to support the local economies? It's the work stress that gets maxed out, the end of the year maxing out, unhealthy relationships, missing family members, missing loved ones that we've lost, losing loved ones during this time of the year, big stress, as we know, depression, being alone this time of the year when you want to be with people, anxiety, sadness, all of that maxes out this time of the year. And then we look at toxins. Okay, I know. From Halloween to Thanksgiving through Christmas into the new year, those toxins go way up, don't they? Holiday parties, what we call the Christmas five, gaining that 5 pounds at Christmas, but then not losing it after the holidays and just going around the year with it added on. Alcohol goes up, even nicotine goes up, caffeine goes up, artificial sweeteners, drugs, Christmas cookies, processed foods, nutritional deficiencies because we're eating the unhealthy food and it's replacing the food we would have put in that was nutritionally dense, overeating, unhealthy fats, high sugar diets. Like, we're maxed out with toxins this time of the year. And then, a lot of people just stop exercising this time of year. So when we talk about traumas, it's the physical stress category. So we have the mental, emotional stress, the chemical stress, and the physical stresses. So sure, slips and falls this time of the year, carrying packages, driving long distances, the travel stress that can be hard on us physically, repetitive traumas, sedentary lifestyle, weather changes, having to deal with shoveling snow, overuse injuries, poor posture, poor sleep. All that's in that physical stress category. So hands up if you recognize that, yes, you have some exposure to some of these things. We all do. And so, Merry Christmas, right? There are known consequences that we typically see this time of the year, and you get to make a choice. So the more unhealthy the lifestyle is, the more stress it puts on the nervous system, and it speeds this process up at holiday time. So the consequences are having a suppressed immune system, depression, exhaustion, anxiety, high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, weight gain, increase in heart attacks, all that plays out. But here's a study that I find very interesting because it shows this study found how stress was linked to disease. Dr. Windsor, he did autopsies and he found that in spite of the cause of death that was known, the average person had 4 to 5 diseased organs that they may not even have known were diseased. And his further investigation showed that 96% of these diseased organs, whether they were known or unknown, were directly related to stress. This study was done in 1921, so we've known for a long time. Can you imagine what it would be like today if we did that same study? The amount of diseased organs that he would find in people. So I want to show you the exact mechanism of how stress causes chronic disease and causes folks to lose their health and well-being. And I also want to show you strategies of how you can reverse it. So remember we asked that question, what system controls how we manage stress? It's the nervous system. Because the nervous system is how we perceive the world. All the information coming in from the environment is through the nervous system. It's how we adapt to stress. It's how we coordinate all the body parts and functions in our body. Every tissue cell in the body has a range of 3 to 9 nerve fibers going to it. And it's how we then express our emotions based on our experience. And we put all of that together. It is truly how we create our conscious reality. And so if the nervous system controls all these functions, we're literally living our lives through our nervous system. And all the stresses that we experience are filtered and processed through the nervous system. So the ability of our nervous system to adapt to stress is going to determine if we're able to maintain homeostasis or balance and maintain optimal function and health. It is the ability of our nervous system to do that, to adapt to those stresses. So if stress becomes chronic or the amount is significant, it can overwhelm the ability of our nervous system to adapt. And this then can lead to unhealthy, covert, hidden, habituated neurologic patterns. So let's look at this another way. We are exposed to the stresses from the outside, as we said, physical, emotional, and chemical. But it's our body's ability to perceive that stress, integrate it, process it in our nervous system, and then respond to it, which is a measure of our internal adaptability going against the external stresses. So if our neurological processing can handle it, we're going to stay healthy. And so if the stress is the part that's on the outside here coming at us, this inside is our tolerance, our ability to tolerate that stress. So we could try to reduce the exposure to the physical, emotional, and chemical stresses, the three T's, thoughts, toxins, and trauma, or we can improve our ability to tolerate whatever those stresses are. And anytime we're able to match those stresses, then we get to be healthy. However, if our internal adaptability is overwhelmed by the external stresses we're exposed to, if we can't handle it, we're going to start developing unhealthy neurological patterns in our body. And so we actually can measure it, and we can literally measure which organs are being affected by the stresses that you're encountering. And so in this little diagram you see here, white is within the normal range. That's the healthy normal. Green is where there's disturbance, where you no longer have health. Blue is significant, and red is severe interference. So you're not healthy. Even if you don't have any symptoms, you're definitely not healthy if you're experiencing that red. And so what do you think happens if severe interference is going to the organs? They're not going to work right. And this test actually measures the autonomic nervous system. And so what do we need to do in order to gain more robustness in our ability to tolerate stresses more effectively? Because I don't see these stresses going away. I see our world continuing to get more and more complex. And so we have to have an adaptable nervous system if we're going to not just survive it, but if we're going to thrive in it. And so if we have that robustness in our health, that internal adaptability is at a high level, as long as it's greater than the stresses you're exposed to, then you can maintain that health and well-being. All right, so now let's look at what do we need to do in order to get that robustness. There are definitely things you need to stop doing, things you need to slow down doing, and things you need to start doing. Our body has the capability to adapt to stress and maintain homeostasis, but it only has certain capacity. And if it's overwhelmed, it's going to start to break down and develop disease. So let's get strategic here on our choices. And I'm about to go over 3 things that will influence your ability to adapt to stress, but one thing that controls it. And I think you know what that is. So let's start with looking at the choices that we have to make. You do have choice here. And really, if it's really about healthy outcomes or sick outcomes, then it comes back to our choices. So no judgment here, just recognizing the laws of nature are that there will be consequences to any choice that you make. So if it's a healthy or an unhealthy choice, we still have to just get you back on track towards your goals. That's the key. So you can't just, if you just look at all these ideas here, if you go the conventional way, like the conventional this time of the year is, yeah, you are gonna pig out on those holiday treats, right? That everybody has and everybody brings and everybody is buying and everybody is selling and everybody is sharing and gifting, right? You're gonna be, overdoing with the parties. You're gonna be sucked into the distractions. You're gonna be like worried about all the shopping and the physical stresses of travel, like all of that thing. If you go the conventional way, that means you would just continue with the same toxic lifestyle that you have had, but you let it max out at the holidays. Now, if you're just going to continue with that, now's not a good time. Maybe I'll wait till after the holidays to make changes. Or yeah, this year was rough, but maybe I'll try again next year. Probably next summer would be a good time, right? Yeah, people put it off. If that happens, you're going to get symptoms, and then the conventional way would be, okay, now I'm just going to treat those symptoms. Oh, yeah, I got a headache. Oh, yeah, I'm anxious. Oh, yeah, I'm not sleeping well. Oh, yeah, I got gut problems. Whatever it is, you treat those symptoms. I guarantee you, this research shows that you will have a shorter and worse life if that's the choices that you're making. However, if your choices are to address the cause, then there's some things to think about here. So it's not just a matter of just saying no. You have to say yes to something. That is the secret behind this. You can't just say no to things. You have to say yes to other things that are going to displace the things that you want to say no to. So, yeah, just say no to drugs. Okay, you have to say yes to something else then. Just say no to stress, just say no to sugar, whatever it is, you have to say yes to something else. And so, oftentimes, we need to overlap a lot of these things that we're saying yes to, so that we can actually gain that robustness before we say no to something that we've been relying on as a crutch. And so, for example, some people are on medications and they don't want to be on medications. So, I'm never going to be the one that takes somebody off of medication. It's outside of my scope. But my job on the team is to build that robustness, give you things to say yes to. So you build the robustness, and then you get to that place where you don't need that crutch anymore, that very crutch that was turning into a wheelchair. So, what are the other ways we can do it? So, continuing the toxic lifestyle, the opposite of that would be coaching on your lifestyle, coaching on your health. That's what our job is to help you identify what are the things that are getting in the way, interfering, and what's the best way to course correct. And again, it comes back to actually correcting what the cause of the problem is, not just treating the symptoms. And if you follow this, I promise you, the research shows you will have a better and longer life. Now, let's look at how we are looking at our environment, the interpretation of our environment, how we are seeing things. And so we have all kinds of thoughts about things, and that's going to determine how it affects your body. So you need to actually train yourself in order to make it easier. Humans have this amazing ability to relive things without actually even being there, and to even experience things that they have never experienced. And all of that can actually still cause the same stress hormones to be released. So it's really about our perception of the world, how we're thinking. And so we can have all these different categories of things that we're bothered about, whatever those stresses are, and then the guy who flipped you off at the traffic light, and then all those stresses, and oh yeah, thinking about that guy again that flipped you off earlier that day, and then there's politics and religion and taxes and email, and right? It's never stops, and it won't stop. So we have to make a choice on that, and we can make a choice. And I love this. This is a bar graph, right? The left is everything you've ever worried about. And then the right-hand bar is everything you've ever worried about that actually happened, right? So we do indulge and worry about so many things that actually never play out. So I would just encourage you to think about how you're thinking. So what do I mean by that? I mean, really, we need to, let's see, choose our attitude. That's what I mean by that. We need to literally choose our attitude. How are we thinking about things? It is so important that we do look at that. How are we thinking about things? Choosing your attitude, you do have choice about it. You have to take a breath sometimes because you feel like you're being railroaded into thinking a certain way or having a certain attitude. And you can always justify that attitude. You know that's true. I know you, right? Because I know me, right? You can always justify it, but it may not serve you. It may not be the attitude that's going to be healthy for you. And so making sure that this time of year, especially, that we have connection, acceptance, that we have respect and unconditional love, that we have all these things that we really do need in order to be healthy. It's genetically programmed into us. It literally is genetically programmed into us. So we have to have tribal acceptance, or we would be dead 40,000 years ago. We have to have connection with the tribe, and we have to have respect within the tribe. And so doing things, spending time with people where you are offering that to them and they are reciprocating it back to you. Unconditional love, that just means that we all need grace at certain times, right? So unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional acceptance of any behavior. It means that we unconditionally love that person. And sometimes we can unconditionally love them from afar if we need to. But again, just recognizing that, There's nothing that that person can do that you would love them more or less. It's not based on their behavior. So that means it's not an unconditional acceptance or approval of their behavior. It's simply for them as a human being, just expressing unconditional love to them. Grace. We all could use grace at any given time and offering that to others. There are tools that I teach people to use when they're stressed in their thinking. EFT is one of those. If you're not familiar with it, it's a great tool to use. Once you learned it, you can literally turn the stress switch off in 30 seconds. If you're in the practice and I haven't introduced it to you yet, just let us know in the next visit and we'll make sure we link you up to the workshop that teaches that. There's also a meditation app that you can download for free called Headspace. They have 10-minute meditations, and I think they give you 10 of them for free. They have, of course, the things that they sell that are upscaled, but literally just those 10-minute meditations can do the trick of just letting you know, oh, this is how you meditate if you've never done it before. So it's a great tool. And then there's a book called The Work by Byron Katie. And Byron Katie was a woman that was actually locked up in, at that time, I think they called it an insane asylum, right? The psychiatric ward, locked up, like not expected to come out. And in her own process, she just discovered that there were 4 questions that she could ask herself that brought her back to clear thinking, groundedness, and sanity. And so she wrote a book called Loving What Is. And you can get that book, a used copy, for just a few dollars on online. And I tell you that the thing I love about the book is everything you need to know is in the first 20 pages. The whole rest of the book is just her going over examples of how she uses it. And so it's just literally learning to ask yourself 4 questions in any situation that will then bring you back to balance, groundedness, clear thinking. All right, let's talk about sleep. Protect your rhythms, your circadian rhythms. Protect the rhythms of your day so that you get the quality of sleep that you really need. Sleep is so important for our health, for our mental, emotional state, for our physical state, even for our ability to manage toxins. We actually have to have good sleep, because if we don't, the toxins build up in our brain. And when that happens, we have all kinds of neurodegenerative diseases that can show up. So anytime we're talking about sleep, remember that a great night's sleep actually starts in the morning. It starts the night before you go to bed, going to bed early. So getting up early and taking naps may be something you need to do if you have gone to bed too late, but it's valid. It's valid to just take a 20-minute nap in the middle of the day, not longer than that. 10 to 20 minutes is best. The healthiest people in the world take naps. Even our ancestors would take a 15 to 20-minute nap in the middle of the day. So that's fine if that's the strategy that you're using. But you do want to protect that circadian rhythm. So going to bed early and waking up early is a much better, healthier version than going to bed late and waking up late. And worst of all is going to bed late and waking up early, where you're not getting enough. So important to do an e-fast, so you're not getting the bright blue light in your eyes before you go to sleep. So 30 to 90 minutes before sleep, you want to turn off the blue lights and the screens. Don't overcommit during the holidays. No is a love word. Really choose what you want to commit to and what you want to say no to. And then check your expectations so you don't overcommit yourself, or you don't overcommit yourself to others. So that's key, those pieces. And you know that you do have those limitations in all 4 areas of time, focus, energy, and money. So good sleep is going to affect your ability to focus, your energy levels, and so on. And so if it affects your sleep and it's affecting your sleep because you're worrying about any of these things, then you're going to need to manage your overcommitments the next day. So really respect the limitations of the 4 limited resources. Pay attention to signals you're getting with sleep. If you're not getting good sleep, pay attention to that as well. So let's just walk through how to make it a reality. Go to bed on time. That sets you up for an awesome day the next day. Planning takes time, but then saves time. So food prep is key before the week starts. Exercising helps sleep, because But you need to exercise hard enough to create physical exertion. And then if you do it daily, then you're going to fall asleep much more easily. But best not to exercise 3 to 4 areas before bed. For many folks, that gets them too alert. The E-fast, 30 to 90 minutes before bed, and 15 minutes of light reading from a real book, not from a light source. And then just plan time to go to sleep and then go to sleep. There's a great website called brainrules.net, and it gives you all the rules about sleep, and tells you how you can learn to sleep better as well. And then just in the morning, having consistent morning rituals. And then it's always easier if you just make it a culture in the whole house that we all go to bed early and we all get up fully rested and early. Eating to thrive. Don't eat less this time of the year. Never go hungry. Don't skip meals, but also maintain healthy portion sizes. So you don't eat less, but do eat less often, but never go hungry. That's the key here. So fill yourself with healthy foods. Choose the healthy foods that are over the traditional unhealthy ones this time of the year. Look for the healthy versions of the unhealthy foods so you can get the value of the tradition, which has the emotional health and the connection without the harm. So I promise you, any recipe of any dessert or unhealthy food that's a holiday food, if you just put the word keto or paleo in front of that recipe and go online, you will find a healthy version of that exact thing. I promise you. I mean, you can find a healthy version of devil dogs online. Yeah, you actually can. Yep. I looked it up just to try and check the system. Like, really, anything at all? Like, yes, it's even there too. So again, the battle is won at the register. And what it means by that is anything that gets into the house, nobody has the willpower once it's in the house to just not eat it. Everybody's a little bit like thrifty, like, well, we can't throw it out. So the battle is won at the register. Don't even let it into the house. But wait a minute. This time of the year, you have guests that come over and they're so generous and they bring this toxic food that they mean well and it even tastes good. What do you do about that? You just make sure it leaves with them. That's the important key there. Make sure it leaves with them. And yeah, that's the key. Don't drink your calories. So watch out for those, like, I don't know, pumpkin lattes and all those other Christmas lattes that they have now. Watch out for all the calories that are in drinks. And this even means healthy smoothies, because smoothies sometimes can be sugar bombs if they're just loaded with fruit and fruit juice. And so recognize that when you drink things, the body doesn't quite register it the same way as it does something that you have to chew. So if you're chewing on something, the body takes it in that you're digesting it and it pays close attention. You put something in your mouth that like just dissolves in your mouth, like Cheetos snacks, right? Cheetos, if you ever had those, they just dissolve in your mouth. They literally design them so that when that happens, your brain is not picking up that you've actually put anything in there. And so you just eat more and more and more. It's part of their design, literally, not just by accident. So drinking your calories, watch out for that this time of the year. And in fact, there's even a good phrase to go by, which is chew your liquids and drink your solids. And what that means is when you put something solid in your mouth, chew it so well that you are getting it down to a liquid that you're then swallowing. And if you're putting a liquid in your mouth, actually chew it around a little bit before you swallow it, because it'll mix with the saliva, you'll digest it better, your body will register it a little bit better as well. So don't drink your calories. And then avoid the white stuff. Christmas, snow, white stuff. I know it's a theme of the year, white. However, the 3 exchanges we want to make are the white flour, the white sugar, and then we also want to make an exchange with the oils. So if you look at the oils, what I mean by that is the unhealthy seed oils that are there that are very inflammatory. You want to go for the healthy sweeteners and the grains. Stay away from the white flour and so on. Go for the whole grains. And again, it's much better if they're fermented or soaked or sprouted before you use the grains. And then more about eating to thrive. So think about, again, our ancestors. What would they have eaten? What are we genetically designed for? We're genetically designed for unlimited vegetables, plenty of lean cuts of natural meats, fish, eggs, wild game, some fruit, some nuts, some seeds, and no refined carbohydrates or sugar, right? Just eliminate it this time of the year. Some raw honey is a natural sugar. Some maple syrup is more of a natural sugar. Coconut palm sugar is actually less glycemic, hyperglycemic than the other cane sugars. So again, just keep those things in mind. And if you can pull it off this time of the year, carry that strongly into the turn of the year so you can be strong for the whole year. But how you do it through the holidays, just like the rest of the year, how you do the rest of the year will play out during the holidays. So if you've trained yourself well already before you're going into the holidays, it's going to be a much easier time. But again, just to use the smart part of your brain to make better decisions here. And then what about supplementation? People ask me about that. So that is in this category of how you eat. And just recognize that the word supplement isn't replacing food, it is supplementing a healthy diet. You can never supplement your way out of an unhealthy diet. So you want to have a healthy diet, but then you want to supplement this time of the year. There's some key strategies. So you want your vitamin D and vitamin K to be really strong, especially this time of year. I've never met a Vermonter that actually can go the whole year round without having a vitamin D supplement. The B complexes are important because the B vitamins get depleted when we're stressed. And since this is the most stressful time of the year, they get depleted more easily. So the B complex is important for stressful times. Fish oil. Fish oil is the antidote to inflammation in our inflammatory lifestyles that our culture has set up for us. So fish oils are key this time of the year. And then probiotics. Not everybody needs a probiotic if they're getting a lot of diversity in their microbiome from their diet by eating a lot of probiotic foods, like the fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, all things like kombucha and things like yogurt and kefir, miso, tempeh. Those are all fermented types of foods. And we are blessed in Vermont to have so much variety of really healthy fermented foods to choose from. And then the echinacea. Echinacea is an amazing herb because what it does is it helps your body to key up your immune system to recognize whatever the invading bacteria are. So it actually helps the immune system recognize things. And you can, yes, indeed, you can take echinacea all the time. You won't, that's a myth that you would should only have it for limited periods of time. That's not true at all. But certainly echinacea would be a useful adaptogenic type of herb to use this time of year because it helps your brain, your immune system to recognize what it needs to do. Elderberry, wonderful, wonderful supplement this time of the year. Goes after all those viruses that people are concerned about this time of the year. And so again, it's not that there's more viruses this time of the year, not that we're in closed environments and we're more susceptible to it. It's that it's the stress and sugar season that makes us more susceptible to it. But if we do have that as a factor, stress in our system, then black elderberry extract is a wonderful tool because it will help your body to manage viruses like that, those respiratory viruses. So that's the idea. And so again, we still want to come back to all of this is helping us to manage the three stresses that we're exposed to. So let's take a look at that last category of traumas. And certainly this time of the year, there could be slips and falls that we take. Those are the macro traumas, the car accidents with the slippery roads, sports injuries like skiing or snowboarding. So many people have injuries from those of their spine. Those are the obvious things. And these traumas can obviously cause problems, but there's a serious condition that you need to understand because it's critical to your health and your ability to heal. And it's what happens even after you feel like you might have healed up from a big trauma and you don't hurt so much anymore. that big trauma could have jarred your spine, and it could leave a residual thing called a subluxation. So we live our lives through traumas and bad habits, and we end up jarring vertebrae out of alignment, and that can cause tissue damage and swelling. That puts pressure on the nerves, which are the conduit for information that keeps you healthy and healing. So remember, our bodies are smart. We're designed to be healthy, and that intelligence is coursing across our nervous system. And our nervous system has to pass from the brain down the spinal cord, out through the nerve roots, to get to every cell in the body, and that's how you get to be healthy, as long as the messages get there and back without interference. So a subluxation is something that can interfere with those flow of messages. Now, what also can happen is your body is smart, and if you have an irritated nerve, it's going to try and strap this joint down in order to reduce the motion in the joint, because that motion may be causing more and more irritation if there's already an inflammatory state there. And so your smart body will strap that joint down with a muscle spasm. When that happens, you now have what's called a joint fixation, where the joint no longer is moving. But when that happens, the brain says something's wrong if that joint is not moving. And if it senses that there's something wrong, it gets worried and it increases the stress hormones in the body. Now, if we can unpack this a little bit more to understand, why would the body be stressed about a joint not moving? And the reason is this: the brain, its real ultimate basic job is to move the body around safely in order to get food. Yep, that's the job of the brain. And so in order to move the body around safely, the brain needs to know what is around it so it doesn't trip and fall and bump and get into trouble. And so it has to take cues from the environment. And one of the ways it takes cues from the environment is to know where the body is in space, and to know what is the body and what is not the body. And in knowing where the body is in space, we call that proprioception. Proprioception, it's the ability to be able to stand on one foot. That's because of our sense of proprioception. It's the ability to stand and bring your finger out and touch your nose, but actually to do that with your eyes closed and still touch your nose. That's that ability of proprioception. And so that is all based on knowing where the body is in space. And so if a joint is moving, it's continually giving feedback to the brain subtly about where the body is in space. It's like a GPS system where every time there's movement, it bing, lights up, and the brain knows exactly where the body is, where that movement occurs. But if there's no longer movement, it stops getting the feedback. And that's what starts to worry the brain, is that it's losing proprioception. It's losing a sense of where the body is in space. And that is very dangerous if the brain doesn't know where the body is in space. How is it going to be able to move us safely around the world or through the world in order to get food? And so when stress hormones go up, that's cortisol that goes up. And that then alters our immune system. So we get that immune system downregulation. And the immune system, when it gets downregulated, many studies are now showing that there's a strong defense in the body that's not just antibodies, but it's natural killer cells. And the natural killer cells actually will be impacted by the high cortisol levels. And there's evidence that chiropractic care can support healthy natural killer cell function, and that promotes a stronger immune system. So let's look at, where are all these stresses coming from? Well, it's not just the macro stresses, the slips and the falls and the accidents. It's also coming from micro trauma. And micro trauma is seen in all these pictures. What do they have all in common? They have poor posture. They're all looking down. Now, many of you are looking at these images all the time in any kind of media, and we just say, oh, that's normal. Nothing going on there. Oh, they're trying to sell a cell phone or a laptop. But look at the posture, and the posture is what's the problem here, and it is cumulative. This is cumulative. We all sit too much. Sitting is the new smoking, right? You've heard that before. We have to move in order to thrive. And so even this time of the year, I know people don't exercise as much this time of the year because it's cold outside, especially here in Vermont. It's cold and it's windy and it's icy. You still need to move to thrive. You still need to do it. Even a 4-minute workout actually makes a difference. And so if you're in the practice, then you know all about the 4-minute workout. Or if you don't yet, you will soon. That 4-minute workout means no excuses. Everybody can do a 4-minute workout anywhere. And so we have to move to thrive. So this time of the year, I challenge you to do one 4-minute workout every single day, at least on the days that you're not exercising in other ways. No excuses. That's a solution for you. So why do we need to look at posture? Because the weight of our head over our shoulders, our head, if it weighs about 12 pounds, if the head is right over the shoulder, the center of the shoulder where it's designed to be, then we're using 12 pounds of work in order to deal with that 12-pound head. But when the head goes forward, like if you were looking down at a cell phone, that the more it goes forward, the more it weighs. So if it goes an inch forward, it's 32 pounds instead of 12 pounds. If it goes more than that, 2 inches forward, it's 42 pounds of work that we're looking at here. So it really makes a difference, posture. And look at the whole top of the nervous system is being impinged on with that poor posture. So most unhealthy, but this is the most unhealthy positions is this humpback. And a lot of women, they don't want that widower's hump, they call it. Dowager's hump, they call it. Nobody wants that humpback, but I'm seeing it in both women and men, and I'm seeing it in younger and younger ages as well. It's the most unhealthy position, not just for the spine, but also for the viscera, for your organs. It's just not as easy to breathe. It's not as easy on your lungs or your heart all day long. And this is what the modern person has turned into. And I know what you mean. I know you'll know what I mean when I have you see this. Everybody remembers Charlie Brown. Here it is. This is my depressed stance. When you're depressed, it makes a lot of difference how you stand. The worst thing you can do is straighten up and hold your head high because then you start to feel better. And if you're going to get any joy out of being depressed, you've got to stand like this, right? So we've seen it for a while. We know that that our perception of the world is reflected in our posture. So everyone has stress. It's not how much stress you have, it's how you handle that stress that's important. And so from the time you were born to now, you've experienced many stressors, and every overloading episode starts to accumulate in the system. You could have intense stressor events that are one-off events that occur, loss of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of a home, loss of, any kind of losses that we have. But it's the chronic unhealthy habits that are overloading because they don't end. Or there are multiple episodes of lesser stresses that lead to unhealthy neurological patterns. And so we have to just recognize that these things are cumulative and they literally create scars on the nervous system. Whether it's the intensity, the chronicity, or the number of episodes, they cause subluxations, which are the unhealthy neurological patterns interfering with the body's ability to express itself optimally. And we call these subluxations. They're causing nerve interference, nerve irritation and interference in your body's innate ability to heal and remain healthy. So it's not just a kink in the neck that causes a muscle spasm and pain. It literally changes the way the brain functions. And adjustments can correct brain function by correcting these subluxations in the spine. So you can see where the nerve is being impinged here. The disc is being compressed. It's bulging out. That's also impinging on the central nervous system, the spinal cord. You can see in this spine here, the red line represents the curve that should be there. The dotted black line is showing where that curve actually is. It's literally reversed in this person. And because of that reversal, it is now jamming the spine, and these bones are deteriorating. The joints here are deteriorating. The discs are disintegrating, and there's all kinds of inflammation here. And this is completely preventable, and it also can be correctable. So the first things first, let's go to Neurology 101, just understanding your nervous system. This is the side view of the body here. We see the brain sending the messages down through the spinal cord and then out through the nerves that are going out to all the organ systems. So we have the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, and then we have the peripheral nervous system carrying the messages back and forth. And this is kind of like a circuit breaker, where if the circuit blows, we know that that wire or wires are going to certain rooms in the house. And then we know, oh yeah, nothing's working in that room. Better go down to the power source and get that turned back on again. And we all know that these circuits break not just randomly, they only blow if there's overload. The same is true for subluxations. They only occur where there's overload, whether it's an event or that persistent low-level stress over time. And it will then start to affect not the rooms in the house, but the organ systems that these wires are in charge of controlling. And so you can see how this all plays out here. And so here we come back to the Windsor autopsies. And so when he said that 96% of the diseased organs were directly related to stress, he found that when he traced those diseased organs and he followed the nerves back to the spine, that in the spine, he found subluxations in the spine that correlated with those organs those nerves were in charge of controlling. He concluded that the irritation near the origin of the sympathetic nerve, that's the nerve coming out of the spine, will cause functional or organic changes in the organs supplied by the nervous system being irritated. And that was in 1921, a fantastic study. And so it just helps us to understand how stress can affect different people in different ways. It really depends on how they're subluxated from their stress. And that will determine which organs will break down over time and then lead to diseased organs. So if you are curious on whether or not you have subluxations, and especially if you're not a member of our practice, if you've been invited here by somebody that is in the practice, then definitely get in touch with them. We have a special offer for you. If you're not and you just found your way onto our webinar, then we'd love to connect with you. And so if you just send a text to us at our text number 802-985-9850, and it just says stress webinar in the text box, then we'll know that that means that you would love to also connect with us, and we will set up a 10-minute consultation over the phone so we can just find out what's going on with you and whether we can help. And we do have some specials going on this time of year, so I encourage you to take advantage of that. So if you are stressed out during this holiday red zone, we have to do something about it. And remember, it's not just about reducing the stress, it's about increasing your ability to adapt to that stress. So how would you know whether or not you actually were adapting or not? Because there are many people that say, yeah, I'm handling all this stress. Or they say, oh, I'm retired now, I don't have any more stress. But you did at one point in time that was still cumulative. So how would you know whether or not you do have scars on your nervous system? We would have to measure that. And so the nervous system is how you adapt to stress. So if you're not adapting to stress, we literally will be able to find the places in your nervous system where that circuit has blown. And then we can actually help you to correct that. And so correcting the subluxations causes the ability to then, the innate ability to adapt to stress better. So we have to find if you have subluxations, and then we have to find what we need to do to correct them for you. But not just that, we have to teach you how to stop recreating them as well. So when we talk about adjusting to thrive, remember the reason why adjustments help is because we know that healthy is normal, that the body was designed to be healthy. We know the body is smart, every single cell is smart, and we know that the nervous system is what is coordinating that intelligence through the whole body. And so if that is true, then you should be healthy. And if you're not healthy, something's interfering with it, and that something is probably stress. And that stress can come in 3 dimensions. That can be thoughts, toxins, or traumas, and it can come in 2 different varieties, toxicities or deficiencies. And so anytime you have those subluxations, we're going to see it playing out in the spine, because the spine is the suit of armor, but it's also the place where the subluxations occur. And because modern life is unnaturally stressful, adjusting the spine actually helps you adapt to stress better. The tools we use for measuring whether or not you have subluxation are looking at posture, looking at the imbalances in the posture. So you can do that yourself. I encourage you during the holiday season when you're with groups of family members and friends, do a posture check. See if people have their heads hunched forward. See if people are standing there for a picture and their heads tilted or turned, or their shoulders one's higher than the other, or their hips have an imbalance. Just look at those things. And those are all signs. The posture is the window to your nervous system. It's a sign of whether you may have subluxations. We also use the instrumentation in the office that I showed you the graphs of. We use heart rate variability and rolling thermography. Heart rate variability is measuring autonomic function balance. It's really showing us how adaptable you are to the stresses that you're encountering. And then the rolling thermography is showing us exactly which organs in the body may be being affected by the scars in the nervous system, by the past stress, past and current stresses that you're enduring. The motion palpation helps us feel whether or not there is that strapping down of a joint that's classic for a subluxation. And the static palpation is actually showing us whether that vertebra is literally misaligned out of position. We can palpate and feel that. The visualization is the posture analysis. And then X-ray actually shows us, sure, if there is that loss of alignment, but it also shows us how long the problem's been there. Because we may feel the spine and feel the misalignment, and we take the X-ray and we see, oh, already degenerative change there. That means it's actually been there a lot longer. And now the body signals are something we pay attention to as well, because that's the symptoms. That's what your body is telling you. And so please do pay attention to that, but then look further than just trying to minimize the symptom. Ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me? What do I need to do about this? Who should I go see to evaluate whether or not I have subluxations? We'd love to be able to do that for you. So the 3 steps to correcting the cause of the problem is breaking the bad habits that keep recreating that problem, adding in specific spinal exercises to get the spine strong and robust, and chiropractic adjustments to correct the damage that has been done, to continue to reconcile present time stresses that are occurring, and to make the nervous system more robust so that you are better able to adapt to greater and greater stresses. And so how would you know if you had subluxations? You'd have to get checked. And so how do you know if holiday stress has left unhealthy neurological patterns? You're going to have to get checked, because those scars on the nervous system indicate where there is dis-ease, and where there is dis-ease, subluxations initiate that downward spiral towards disease, meaning a named pathological problem where you actually have the symptoms. This is a healing journey I'd like to just share with you, because it shows one person's story in our office. This is a woman that came in that had struggled with anxiety. And this was June when she came in, but I want to show you where she ended up by the time it was this time of the year. So a month later, look at that beautiful scan, how much healthier it is. And then here's September. Her patterns are changing, still some stresses, but still kind of holding her own with that, getting a little bit healthier. And then by December, she literally was going into the holidays stronger than in midsummer. So preventing holiday subluxations and building health, it is the key to eliminating the dis-ease process. The key to it is how well an individual can manage the 3 types of stresses and their nervous system during the holiday season. So the 3 things that influence your ability to deal with stress are going to be thoughts, toxins, and traumas. But the thing that controls how you're adapting to your stress is the nervous system. And so reversing the effects of subluxation is what we do here. And this is this woman that I just showed you. By Christmas, she had a clear nervous system. This was 4 years later. She still had a clear nervous system, because we had taught her how to take care of her spine. And so she knew spinal hygiene, and she also had regular chiropractic care to keep it that way. So the choice is yours to make. And the choices that you do make today are going to determine your health tomorrow, because it is cumulative. So it's your choice. It's up to you. But don't wait till you have chronic disease and you're losing your health, or you're having a stroke or cardiovascular disease before taking action. And do start eating your vegetables. And by the way, don't use the holidays as an excuse to live poorly, because subluxations do not go on vacation. They do not take holidays. And yes, Santa does get checked, because it's a tough job delivering all those toys on Christmas Eve. And so he knows he needs to get checked too. So change, it's worth it. It's not too hard. I know you can do it. And we sometimes have dangerous beliefs that we can just ignore things and maybe they'll go away. But I encourage you to not ignore them, to actually pay attention. And if we can help, again, please text us. We'd love to help. And we'll just be, put in stress webinar as the key to that. And that way we'll know to connect with you. So I'm going to finish up our recording of this. And I thank everybody for joining us. And let's see, there we go.